Hello, my name is Clark Haskins and I'm with the SAGE North America Center of Excellence. This is part of a series of videos on how to implement preventive maintenance in SAGE X3. This video will cover equipment and resources in preventive maintenance. Equipment and resources are key pieces of preventive maintenance. Both are similar to work centers used in manufacturing in X3. Equipment is the equivalent of the machine work center. It's the what. And a resource is like a labor work center. It's the who. To illustrate how they're used, let's go to X3. In preventive maintenance, there's a maintenance task, which is similar to a routing in manufacturing. Equipment and resources are added to the maintenance task. This identifies where the work is to be performed, which is the equipment, and by who, the resource, as well as the planned time to complete the operation of the task. Now let's start with equipment. We can jump to using our landing page, or here we'll navigate under preventive maintenance, job ticket setup, and here's equipment. Equipment can be anything that needs regular maintenance. It can be a work center like a packaging line. It can be a section of a work center like the palletizer on the packaging line. Equipment can be something that requires inspection or calibration where proof of inspection is needed. It can be production related or non-production related. For non-production related, think of a shipping bay door. Now this provides tremendous flexibility for your customer's specific maintenance needs. To create equipment, we'd start by entering the equipment code. Then we'd enter the site, we enter the description, a short description if required, and then we enter equipment groups. Creation of an equipment group is required. An equipment group is like a work center group, only it's exclusive to equipment. Equipment groups can be used to group equipment by type, such as production or non-production, by category, like hydraulic, electronic, electrical, pneumatic, mechanical, etc. Equipment groups provide flexibility for the user and can be used for reporting or assigning supervising responsibilities as well. Again, great flexibility for your customer needs. The work center, indicated in the management section, provides the ability to provide visibility of where the equipment's located. This is used for scheduling purposes for the work center, where you can identify the work center so that variation for downtime can be entered to be applied to scheduling. Now, the entire maintenance section represents a place to store important information about the equipment, kind of a single source for the related data. Next field, we have the parent equipment field. Since equipment, one piece of equipment can be a component of a larger piece of equipment, that's the definition of parent and child relationship. Think of a hydraulic pump in the parent hydraulic system, or the palletizer in the parent packaging line. Taking this further, think of a scenario where there's planned maintenance to overhaul a package line. The packaging line would be the parent. Operation tasks could be created for each equipment requiring a specific task resource within that defined skill set assigned to that task. So basically, the parent represents the packaging line, and every individual piece of equipment can be identified by that parent equipment. We mentioned resources. We'll talk more on that later in the video. The model number field is used for information purposes to easily record this data in a central location. The location field provides the ability to enter standard X3 location for the ease of identifying where the equipment's located. Now, like The model number, the serial number field, is for information purposes and can be used for differentiation between like units, tracking warranties, etc. Following the previous example, think of a hydraulic pump that has a serial number provided by the manufacturer. This can be used to differentiate the units and for tracking warranties, as mentioned. Date of service is a reference field, identifying when the equipment went into service, again to help with warranty information, maintenance scheduling, calibration, and so on. Equipment statuses provide the option to record the status of the equipment. The statuses are configurable using a local menu, 21691. Giving you the capability to modify statuses based on your customer needs. Note that standard X3 attachments functionality is available in the equipment function. It can be used to store key information like user manuals, warranty information, tester configuration results, and any related work instructions and procedures. Let's go to the History tab. The history from the job ticket tracking is populated in this section after a job ticket is closed. This provides documentation and verification of the tasks performed on each equipment. In this example, we have our date, we have our maintenance task, the job ticket tracking information, the date the tracking was completed, the reason code associated to the job ticket, the actual resource that performed, as well as the time it took to perform that task for this piece of equipment. Schedule sections used to enter any preventive maintenance tasks or inspection tasks that need to be scheduled in the future, such as an annual inspection or a task to replace an overhaul. Same idea, we have our maintenance task product. We have identification of Preventive, if applicable. We're able to identify the resource as well. But oftentimes, from the purposes of scheduling in the future, what needs to be scheduled, those resources may not be known at the time of entering. The user can identify the skill set required for the task. In the skills column and the description, you see the different skill sets. We're going to jump into that a little more detail later on in the video. Okay, so next we want to talk about resources, the who. As I previously stated, resources are similar to the labor work center in routing. Resources identify who will do the work and the cost associated with that resource. A resource could be an individual or a team. It could be a named individual or a referenced identifier. It could be an internal resource, somebody on staff, or it could be an external supplier. To create a resource, we want to enter our resource code, enter our site, enter the description and short description, and then enter the resource group. Resource groups are exclusive to resources, and this gives the capability to group resources in different ways. Think of by skill, by team, by shift. There are many options to meet the needs of your customer. I mentioned supplier previously. You have the ability to identify an external supplier on your resource function with that resource ID assigned. Now, a resource can be marked as active with an active date or an inactive date. An active and inactive resource is blocked from being used on a maintenance task, but will still show in equipment history. So you have the capability of entering that active date. This is when the resource started working, or if we unselected the resource active date, we can enter the inactive date to provide that visibility. Structure is an optional field that can be used to provide visibility of when the resource is available. The resource only works, for example, on weekends or a specific shift, such as midnight shift, the same way that structure is assigned on your work centers. Okay, let's talk about costing dimensions. They work the same way they do for work centers. So we're going to jump to the costing dimension function. So we've got our costing dimension entered, we have our site, and then we have our rate information. What we're interested in is getting our standard setup values and our standard run values entered. This is our labor rate. A standard run is required to have a cost associated with the resource for the standard cost calculation, of course, depending on the selection used in standard cost calculation, and to calculate the actual cost of the maintenance task. If needed, there's the capability of adding overhead for that labor resource, as well as a cost group. Here. Now for the WIP interface used in preventive maintenance, an accounting code is required. The accounting code tells the system which labor and labor variance accounts are to be used in posting of the journal entries. Be aware that a separate costing dimension would be required for each resource when the rate, the overhead, or the accounting code is different. And of course, you saw as I closed out that screen, you've got the capability of adding analytical dimensions should they be required. Earlier in the video, I've mentioned skill sets. Skill sets are used to identify which resource can be assigned to which maintenance task. There are several options available. Just look at the list associated here. This can be configured specifically for the customer's needs at miscellaneous table 22,000. For example, we've got our electrical resource. Maybe you want to have two electrical resources, one being licensed electrical resource, the other being electrical resource apprentice. It just provides more functionality for your customer to be able to set the skill sets that are applicable for their facilities. Attachments are available on the resource function. Typically, they could be utilized to store information about the resource, such as licenses, certificates, etc. Okay, so key points about equipment and resources. For equipment, a parent-child relationship with equipment can be established. A hydraulic motor is a child of the parent hydraulic system on a press, for example. Equipment can be associated to a work center or assigned to a location. The equipment function provides a single source of information with model number, serial number, and place for attachments. There's the ability to identify tasks to be scheduled to provide visibility of what maintenance tasks need to be done in the future and for when. Resources, we want to ensure your resource is set to active, otherwise it is not available to use on the job ticket. We need to add cost dimensions to a resource with rates and overhead when overhead is applicable. Add the accounting code for labor. And we have the ability to utilize the skill set grid to simplify the selection of a resource for a job ticket. Skill sets can be added or modified at